Book 24. Argument. The redemption of the body of Hector. The gods deliberate about the redemption of Hector's body. Jupiter sends Thetis to Achilles, to dispose him for the restoring it, and Iris to Priam, to encourage him to go in person and treat for it. The old king, notwithstanding the remonstrances of his queen, makes ready for the journey, to which he is encouraged by an omen from Jupiter. He sets forth in his chariot, with a waggon loaded with presents, under the charge of Idaeus, the herald. Mercury descends in the shape of a young man, and conducts him to the pavilion of Achilles. Their conversation on the way. Priam finds Achilles at his table, casts himself at his feet, and begs for the body of his son. Achilles, moved with compassion, grants his request, detains him one night in his tent, and the next morning sends him home with the body. The Trojans run out to meet him. The lamentations of Andromache, Hecuba, and Helen, with the solemnities of the funeral. The time of 12 days is employed in this book, while the body of Hector lies in the tent of Achilles, and as many more are spent in the truce allowed for his interment. The scene is partly in Achilles' camp, and partly in Troy. Now from the finish'd games the Grecian band seek their black ships, and clear the crowded strand. All stretch'd at ease, the genial banquet share, and pleasing slumbers quiet all their care. Not so Achilles: he, to grief resigned, his friend's dear image present to his mind, takes his sad couch, more unobserved to weep, nor tastes the gifts of all composing sleep. Restless he roll'd around his weary bed, and all his soul on his Patroclus fed. The form so pleasing, and the heart so kind, that youthful vigour, and that manly mind, what toils they shared, what martial works they wrought, what seas they measured, and what fields they fought! All pass'd before him in remembrance dear, thought follows thought, and tear succeeds to tear. And now supine, now prone, the hero lay, now shifts his side, impatient for the day. Then starting up, disconsolate he goes wide on the lonely beach to vent his woes. There, as the solitary mourner raves, the ruddy morning rises o'er the waves. Soon as it rose, his furious steeds he join'd; the chariot flies, and Hector trails behind. And thrice, Patroclus, round thy monument was Hector dragg'd, then hurried to the tent. There sleep at last o'ercomes the hero's eyes, while foul in dust the unhonour'd carcase lies, but not deserted by the pitying skies; for Phœbus watch'd it with superior care, preserved from gaping wounds and tainting air; and, ignominious as it swept the field, spread o'er the sacred corse his golden shield. All heaven was moved, and Hermes will'd to go by stealth to snatch him from the insulting foe. But Neptune this, and Pallas this denies, and the unrelenting empress of the skies, ere since that day implacable to Troy, what time young Paris, simple shepherd boy, won by destructive lust, reward obscene, their charms rejected for the Cyprian queen. But when the 10th celestial morning broke, to heaven assembled, thus Apollo spoke: "Unpitying powers! how oft each holy fane Has Hector tinged with blood of victims slain! And can ye still his cold remains pursue? Still grudge his body to the Trojans' view? Deny to consort, mother, son, and sire, The last sad honours of a funeral fire? Is then the dire Achilles all your care? That iron heart, inflexibly severe? A lion, not a man, who slaughters wide, In strength of rage, and impotence of pride; Who hastes to murder with a savage joy, Invades around, and breathes but to destroy. Shame is not of his soul; nor understood The greatest evil and the greatest good. Still for one loss he rages unresigned, Repugnant to the lot of all mankind. To lose a friend, a brother, or a son, Heaven dooms each mortal, and its will is done. Awhile they sorrow, then dismiss their care; Fate gives the wound, and man is born to bear. But this insatiate, the commission given By fate exceeds, and tempts the wrath of heaven. Lo, how his rage dishonest drags along Hector's dead earth, insensible of wrong! Brave though he be, yet by no reason awed, He violates the laws of man and god. If equal honours by the partial skies Are doom'd both heroes, Juno thus replies. If Thetis' son must no distinction know, Then hear, ye gods, the patron of the bow. But Hector only boasts a mortal claim, His birth deriving from a mortal dame. Achilles, of your own ethereal race, Springs from a goddess by a man's embrace, A goddess by ourself to Peleus given, A man divine, and chosen friend of heaven. To grace those nuptials, from the bright abode Yourselves were present; where this minstrel god, Well pleased to share the feast, amid the choir Stood proud to hymn, and tune his youthful lyre. Then thus the Thunderer checks the imperial dame: "Let not thy wrath the court of heaven inflame; Their merits nor their honours are the same. But mine, and every god's peculiar grace, Hector deserves, of all the Trojan race. Still on our shrines his grateful offerings lay, The only honours men to gods can pay; Nor ever from our smoking altar ceased The pure libation, and the holy feast. Howe'er by stealth to snatch the corse away, We will not; Thetis guards it night and day. But haste, and summon to our courts above The azure queen; let her persuasion move Her furious son from Priam to receive The proffer'd ransom, and the corse to leave." He added not; and Iris from the skies, Swift as a whirlwind, on the message flies, Meteorous the face of ocean sweeps, Refulgent gliding o'er the sable deeps. Between where Samos wide his forest spreads, And rocky Imbrus lifts its pointed heads, Down plunged the maid; the parted waves resound; She plunged, and instant shot the dark profound. As bearing death in the fallacious bait, From the bent angle sinks the leaden weight; So pass'd the goddess through the closing wave, Where Thetis sorrow'd in her secret cave. There placed amidst her melancholy train, The blue hair'd sisters of the sacred main, Pensive she sat, revolving fates to come, And wept her godlike son's approaching doom. Then thus the goddess of the painted bow: "Arise, O Thetis, from thy seats below, 'Tis Jove that calls." "And why," the dame replies, "Calls Jove his Thetis to the hated skies? Sad object as I am for heavenly sight! Ah, may my sorrows ever shun the light! Howe'er, be heaven's almighty sire obey'd." She spake, and veil'd her head in sable shade, Which, flowing long, her graceful person clad; And forth she paced, majestically sad. Then through the world of waters they repair (The way fair Iris led) to upper air. The deeps dividing, o'er the coast they rise, And touch with momentary flight the skies. There in the lightning's blaze the sire they found, And all the gods in shining synod round. Thetis approach'd with anguish in her face; Minerva rising, gave the mourner place. Even Juno sought her sorrows to console, And offer'd from her hand the nectar bowl. She tasted, and resigned it; then began The sacred sire of gods and mortal man: "Thou comest, fair Thetis, but with grief o'ercast; Maternal sorrows, long, long to last. Suffice, we know and we partake thy cares; But yield to fate, and hear what Jove declares. 9 days are past since all the court above In Hector's cause have moved the ear of Jove. 'Twas voted, Hermes from his godlike foe By stealth should bear him, but we will'd not so. We will, thy son himself the corse restore, And to his conquest add this glory more. Then hie thee to him, and our mandate bear; Tell him he tempts the wrath of heaven too far; Nor let him more (our anger if he dread) Vent his mad vengeance on the sacred dead; But yield to ransom and the father's prayer. The mournful father Iris shall prepare With gifts to sue, and offer to his hands Whate'er his honour asks, or heart demands." His word the silver footed queen attends, And from Olympus' snowy tops descends. Arrived, she heard the voice of loud lament, And echoing groans that shook the lofty tent. His friends prepare the victim, and dispose Repast unheeded, while he vents his woes. The goddess seats her by her pensive son, And press'd his hand, and tender thus begun: "How long, unhappy, shall thy sorrows flow, And thy heart waste with life consuming woe? Mindless of food, or love, whose pleasing reign Soothes weary life, and softens human pain. Oh snatch the moments yet within thy power; Not long to live, indulge the amorous hour. Lo, Jove himself (for Jove's command I bear) Forbids to tempt the wrath of heaven too far. No longer then, his fury if thou dread, detain the relics of great Hector dead; Nor vent on senseless earth thy vengeance vain, But yield to ransom, and restore the slain." To whom Achilles: "Be the ransom given, And we submit, since such the will of heaven." While thus they communed, from the Olympian bowers Jove orders Iris to the Trojan towers: "Haste, winged goddess, to the sacred town, And urge her monarch to redeem his son. Alone the Ilian ramparts let him leave, And bear what stern Achilles may receive. Alone, for so we will: no Trojan near Except, to place the dead with decent care, Some aged herald, who with gentle hand May the slow mules and funeral car command. Nor let him death, nor let him danger dread, Safe through the foe by our protection led. Him Hermes to Achilles shall convey, Guard of his life, and partner of his way. Fierce as he is, Achilles' self shall spare His age, nor touch one venerable hair. Some thought there must be in a soul so brave, Some sense of duty, some desire to save." Then down her bow the winged Iris drives, And swift at Priam's mournful court arrives, Where the sad sons beside their father's throne Sat bathed in tears, and answer'd groan with groan. And all amidst them lay the hoary sire, Sad scene of woe! His face, his wrapp'd attire, Conceal'd from sight; with frantic hands he spread A shower of ashes o'er his neck and head. From room to room his pensive daughters roam, Whose shrieks and clamours fill the vaulted dome; Mindful of those, who late their pride and joy, Lie pale and breathless round the fields of Troy. Before the king Jove's messenger appears, And thus in whispers greets his trembling ears: "Fear not, O father! no ill news I bear; From Jove I come; Jove makes thee still his care. For Hector's sake these walls he bids thee leave, And bear what stern Achilles may receive. Alone, for so he wills; no Trojan near Except, to place the dead with decent care, Some aged herald, who with gentle hand May the slow mules and funeral car command. Nor shalt thou death, nor shall thou danger dread; Safe through the foe by his protection led. Thee Hermes to Pelides shall convey, Guard of thy life, and partner of thy way. Fierce as he is, Achilles' self shall spare Thy age, nor touch one venerable hair. Some thought there must be in a soul so brave, Some sense of duty, some desire to save." She spoke, and vanish'd. Priam bids prepare His gentle mules, and harness to the car. There, for the gifts, a polish'd casket lay; His pious sons the king's command obey. Then pass'd the monarch to his bridal room, Where cedar beams the lofty roofs perfume, And where the treasures of his empire lay. Then call'd his queen, and thus began to say: "Unhappy consort of a king distress'd, Partake the troubles of thy husband's breast. I saw descend the messenger of Jove, Who bids me try Achilles' mind to move. Forsake these ramparts, and with gifts obtain The corse of Hector, at yon navy slain. Tell me thy thought: my heart impels to go Through hostile camps, and bears me to the foe." The hoary monarch thus: her piercing cries Sad Hecuba renews, and then replies: "Ah, whither wanders thy distemper'd mind? And where the prudence now that awed mankind? Through Phrygia once and foreign regions known, Now all confused, distracted, overthrown? Singly to pass through hosts of foes, to face, O heart of steel! the murderer of thy race; To view that dreadful eye, and wander o'er Those hands yet red with Hector's noble gore? Alas, my lord, he knows not how to spare; And what his mercy, thy slain sons declare. So brave, so many fallen! To claim his rage Vain were thy dignity, and vain thy age. No, pent in this sad palace, let us give To grief the wretched days we have to live. Still, still for Hector let our sorrows flow, Born to his own, and to his parents' woe. Doom'd from the hour his luckless life begun, To dogs, to vultures, and to Peleus' son. Oh! in his dearest blood might I allay My rage, and these barbarities repay: For ah! could Hector merit thus, whose breath Expired not meanly, in unactive death? He pour'd his latest blood in manly fight, And fell a hero in his country's right." "Seek not to stay me, nor my soul affright With words of omen, like a bird of night," Replied unmoved the venerable man. "'Tis heaven commands me, and you urge in vain. Had any mortal voice the injunction laid, Nor augur, priest, nor seer had been obey'd. A present goddess brought the high command, I saw, I heard her, and the word shall stand. I go, ye gods, obedient to your call; If in yon camp your powers have doom'd my fall, Content; by the same hand let me expire; Add to the slaughter'd son the wretched sire. One cold embrace at least may be allowed, And my last tears flow mingled with his blood." From forth his open stores, this said, he drew 12 costly carpets of refulgent hue, As many vests, as many mantles told, And 12 fair veils, and garments stiff with gold, 2 tripods next, and twice 2 chargers shine, With 10 pure talents from the richest mine. And last, a large well labour'd bowl had place, The pledge of treaties once with friendly Thrace. Seem'd all too mean the stores he could employ, For one last look to buy him back to Troy. Lo, the sad father, frantic with his pain, Around him furious drives his menial train. In vain each slave with duteous care attends, Each office hurts him, and each face offends. "What make ye here, officious crowds? (he cries) Hence, nor obtrude your anguish on my eyes. Have ye no griefs at home to fix ye there? Am I the only object of despair? Am I become my people's common show, Set up by Jove, your spectacle of woe? No, you must feel him too, yourselves must fall; The same stern god to ruin gives you all. Nor is great Hector lost by me alone, Your sole defence, your guardian power is gone. I see your blood the fields of Phrygia drown, I see the ruins of your smoking town. Oh send me, gods, ere that sad day shall come, A willing ghost to Pluto's dreary dome." He said, and feebly drives his friends away; The sorrowing friends his frantic rage obey. Next on his sons his erring fury falls, Polites, Paris, Agathon he calls. His threats Deiphobus and Dius hear, Hippothous, Pammon, Helenes the seer, And generous Antiphon, for yet these 9 Survived, sad relics of his numerous line. Inglorious sons of an unhappy sire! Why did not all in Hector's cause expire? Wretch that I am, my bravest offspring slain! You, the disgrace of Priam's house, remain. Mestor the brave, renown'd in ranks of war, With Troilus, dreadful on his rushing car, And last great Hector, more than man divine, For sure he seem'd not of terrestrial line. All those relentless Mars untimely slew, And left me these, a soft and servile crew, Whose days the feast and wanton dance employ, Gluttons and flatterers, the contempt of Troy. Why teach ye not my rapid wheels to run, And speed my journey to redeem my son?" The sons their father's wretched age revere, Forgive his anger, and produce the car. High on the seat the cabinet they bind; The new made car with solid beauty shined. Box was the yoke, embossed with costly pains, And hung with ringlets to receive the reins. 9 cubits long, the traces swept the ground; These to the chariot's polish'd pole they bound. Then fix'd a ring the running reins to guide, And close beneath the gather'd ends were tied. Next, with the gifts (the price of Hector slain) The sad attendants load the groaning wain. Last to the yoke the well-match'd mules they bring, The gift of Mysia to the Trojan king. But the fair horses, long his darling care, Himself received, and harness'd to his car. Grieved as he was, he not this task denied; The hoary herald help'd him at his side. While careful these the gentle coursers join'd, Sad Hecuba approach'd with anxious mind. A golden bowl that foam'd with fragrant wine, Libation destined to the power divine, Held in her right, before the steed she stands, And thus consigns it to the monarch's hands: "Take this, and pour to Jove, that safe from harms his grace restore thee to our roof and arms. Since victor of thy fears, and slighting mine, Heaven, or thy soul, inspires this bold design, Pray to that god, who high on Ida's brow Surveys thy desolated realms below, His winged messenger to send from high, And lead thy way with heavenly augury. Let the strong sovereign of the plumy race Tower on the right of yon ethereal space. That sign beheld, and strengthened from above, Boldly pursue the journey marked by Jove. But if the god his augury denies, Suppress thy impulse, nor reject advice." "'Tis just," said Priam, to the sire above To raise our hands, for who so good as Jove?" He spoke, and bade the attendant handmaid bring The purest water of the living spring; Her ready hands the ewer and basin held; Then took the golden cup his queen had fill'd, On the mid pavement pours the rosy wine, Uplifts his eyes, and calls the power divine. "O first and greatest, heaven's imperial lord, On lofty Ida's holy hill adored! To stern Achilles now direct my ways, And teach him mercy when a father prays. If such thy will, despatch from yonder sky Thy sacred bird, celestial augury; Let the strong sovereign of the plumy race Tower on the right of yon ethereal space: So shall thy suppliant, strengthened from above, Fearless pursue the journey marked by Jove." Jove heard his prayer, and from the throne on high Despatch'd his bird, celestial augury; The swift wing'd chaser of the feather'd game, And known to gods by Prycnos' lofty name. Wide as appears some palace gate display'd, So broad his pinions stretch'd their ample shade, As stooping dexter with resounding wings The imperial bird descends in airy rings. A dawn of joy in every face appears, The mourning matron dries her timorous tears; Swift on his car the impatient monarch sprung, The brazen portal in his passage rung; The mules preceding draw the loaded wain, Charged with the gifts; Idæus holds the rein; The king himself his gentle steeds controls, And through surrounding friends the chariot rolls. On his slow wheels the following people wait, Mourn at each step, and give him up to fate; With hands uplifted, eye him as he pass'd, And gaze upon him as they gazed their last. Now forward fares the father on his way, Through the lone fields, and back to Ilion they. Great Jove beheld him as he cross'd the plain, And felt the woes of miserable man. Then thus to Hermes: "Thou whose constant cares Still succour mortals, and attend their prayers, Behold an object to thy charge consign'd: If ever pity touch'd thee for mankind, Go, guard the sire; the observing foe prevent, And safe conduct him to Achilles' tent." The god obeys, his golden pinions binds, And mounts incumbent on the wings of winds, That high, through fields of air, his flight sustain, O'er the wide earth, and o'er the boundless main; Then grasps the wand that causes sleep to fly, Or in soft slumber seals the wakeful eye. Thus arm'd, swift Hermes steers his airy way, And stoops on Hellespont's resounding sea. A beauteous youth, majestic and divine, He seem'd, fair offspring of some princely line. Now twilight veil'd the glaring face of day, And clad the dusky fields in sober grey. What time the herald and the hoary king, Their chariots stopping at the silver spring, That circling Ilus' ancient marble flows, Allow'd their mules and steeds a short repose. Through the dim shade the herald first espies A man's approach, and thus to Priam cries: "I mark some foe's advance: O king, beware! This hard adventure claims thy utmost care; For much I fear destruction hovers nigh. Our state asks counsel: is it best to fly? Or old and helpless, at his feet to fall, Two wretched suppliants, and for mercy call?" The afflicted monarch shiver'd with despair, Pale grew his face, and upright stood his hair; Sunk was his heart, his colour went and came, A sudden trembling shook his aged frame; When Hermes, greeting, touch'd his royal hand, And, gentle, thus accosts with kind demand: "Say whither, father, when each mortal sight Is seal'd in sleep, thou wanderest through the night? Why roam thy mules and steeds the plains along, Through Grecian foes, so numerous and so strong? What couldst thou hope, should these thy treasures view, These, who with endless hate thy race pursue? For what defence, alas! couldst thou provide? Thyself not young, a weak old man thy guide. Yet suffer not thy soul to sink with dread; From me no harm shall touch thy reverend head. From Greece I'll guard thee too, for in those lines The living image of my father shines." "Thy words, that speak benevolence of mind, Are true, my son," the godlike sire rejoined. "Great are my hazards, but the gods survey My steps, and send thee, guardian of my way. Hail, and be bless'd! for scarce of mortal kind Appear thy form, thy feature, and thy mind." "Nor true are all thy words, nor erring wide," The sacred messenger of heaven replied. "But say, convey'st thou through the lonely plains What yet most precious of thy store remains, To lodge in safety with some friendly hand? Prepared, perchance, to leave thy native land? Or fliest thou now? What hopes can Troy retain, Thy matchless son, her guard and glory, slain?" The king, alarm'd. "Say what? And whence thou art who search the sorrows of a parent's heart, and know so well how godlike Hector died?" Thus Priam spoke, and Hermes thus replied: "You tempt me, father, and with pity touch; On this sad subject you inquire too much. Oft have these eyes that godlike Hector view'd In glorious fight, with Grecian blood imbrued. I saw him when, like Jove, his flames he toss'd On thousand ships, and wither'd half a host. I saw, but help'd not: stern Achilles' ire Forbade assistance, and enjoy'd the fire. For him I serve, of Myrmidonian race; One ship convey'd us from our native place. Polyctor is my sire, an honour'd name, Old like thyself, and not unknown to fame. Of 7 his sons, by whom the lot was cast To serve our prince, it fell on me, the last. To watch this quarter, my adventure falls, For with the morn the Greeks attack your walls. Sleepless they sit, impatient to engage, And scarce their rulers check their martial rage." "If then thou art of stern Pelides' train, (the mournful monarch thus rejoined again,) Ah, tell me truly, where, oh where are laid My son's dear relics, what befalls him dead? Have dogs dismember'd, on the naked plains, Or yet unmangled rest his cold remains?" "O favour'd of the skies! (thus answer'd then The power that mediates between god and men,) Nor dogs nor vultures have thy Hector rent, But whole he lies, neglected in the tent. This the 12th evening since he rested there, Untouch'd by worms, untainted by the air. Still as Aurora's ruddy beam is spread, Round his friend's tomb Achilles drags the dead; Yet undisfigured, or in limb or face, All fresh he lies, with every living grace, Majestical in death: no stains are found O'er all the corse, and closed is every wound, Though many a wound they gave. Some heavenly care, some hand divine, Preserves him ever fair; Or all the host of heaven, to whom he led A life so grateful, still regard him dead." Thus spoke to Priam the celestial guide, And joyful thus the royal sire replied: "Bless'd is the man who pays the gods above The constant tribute of respect and love. Those who inhabit the Olympian bower My son forgot not, in exalted power; And heaven, that every virtue bears in mind, Even to the ashes of the just is kind. But thou, O generous youth, this goblet take, A pledge of gratitude for Hector's sake. And while the favouring gods our steps survey, Safe to Pelides' tent conduct my way." To whom the latent god: "O king, forbear To tempt my youth, for apt is youth to err. But can I, absent from my prince's sight, Take gifts in secret, that must shun the light? What from our master's interest thus we draw, Is but a licensed theft that 'scapes the law. Respecting him, my soul abjures the offence, And as the crime, I dread the consequence. Thee, far as Argos, pleased I could convey, Guard of thy life, and partner of thy way; On thee attend, thy safety to maintain, O'er pathless forests, or the roaring main." He said, then took the chariot at a bound, And snatch'd the reins, and whirl'd the lash around. Before the inspiring god that urged them on, The coursers fly with spirit not their own. And now they reach'd the naval walls, and found The guards repasting, while the bowls go round. On these the virtue of his wand he tries, And pours deep slumber on their watchful eyes. Then heaved the massy gates, removed the bars, And o'er the trenches led the rolling cars. Unseen, through all the hostile camp they went, And now approach'd Pelides' lofty tent. On firs the roof was raised, and cover'd o'er With reeds collected from the marshy shore; And fenced with palisades, a hall of state, The work of soldiers, where the hero sat. Large was the door, whose well compacted strength A solid pine tree barr'd of wondrous length. Scarce 3 strong Greeks could lift its mighty weight, But great Achilles singly closed the gate. This Hermes (such the power of gods) set wide; Then swift alighted the celestial guide, And thus revealed: "Hear, prince, and understand Thou owest thy guidance to no mortal hand. Hermes I am, descended from above, The king of arts, the messenger of Jove. Farewell! To shun Achilles' sight I fly; Uncommon are such favours of the sky, Nor stand confess'd to frail mortality. Now fearless enter, and prefer thy prayers; Adjure him by his father's silver hairs, His son, his mother, urge him to bestow Whatever pity that stern heart can know." Thus having said, he vanish'd from his eyes, And in a moment shot into the skies. The king, confirm'd from heaven, alighted there, And left his aged herald on the car. With solemn pace through various rooms he went, And found Achilles in his inner tent. There sat the hero; Alcimus the brave, And great Automedon, attendance gave. These served his person at the royal feast; Around, at awful distance, stood the rest. Unseen by these, the king his entry made, And prostrate now before Achilles laid, Sudden (a venerable sight) appears, Embraced his knees, and bathed his hands in tears. Those direful hands his kisses press'd, Imbrued even with the best, the dearest of his blood. As when a wretch, who, conscious of his crime, Pursued for murder, flies his native clime, Just gains some frontier, breathless, pale, amazed, All gaze, all wonder: thus Achilles gazed. Thus stood the attendants stupid with surprise, All mute, yet seem'd to question with their eyes. Each look'd on other; none the silence broke, Till thus at last the kingly suppliant spoke: "Ah, think thou favour'd of the powers divine, Think of thy father's age, and pity mine. In me that father's reverend image trace, Those silver hairs, that venerable face, His trembling limbs, his helpless person see, In all my equal, but in misery. Yet now, perhaps, some turn of human fate Expels him helpless from his peaceful state. Think, from some powerful foe thou seest him fly, And beg protection with a feeble cry. Yet still one comfort in his soul may rise, He hears his son still lives to glad his eyes, And, hearing, still may hope a better day May send him thee, to chase that foe away. No comfort to my griefs, no hopes remain, The best, the bravest of my sons are slain. Yet what a race, ere Greece to Ilion came, The pledge of many a loved and loving dame! 19 one mother bore; dead, all are dead. How oft, alas! has wretched Priam bled! Still one was left their loss to recompense, His father's hope, his country's last defence. Him too thy rage has slain; beneath thy steel Unhappy in his country's cause he fell. For him through hostile camps I bent my way, For him thus prostrate at thy feet I lay. Large gifts proportioned to thy wrath I bear; Oh hear the wretched, and the gods revere. Think of thy father, and this face behold, See him in me as helpless and as old. Though not so wretched, there he yields to me, The first of men in sovereign misery. Thus forced to kneel, thus grovelling to embrace The scourge and ruin of my realm and race; Suppliant my children's murderer to implore, And kiss those hands yet reeking with their gore." These words soft pity in the chief inspire, Touch'd with the dear remembrance of his sire. Then with his hand (as prostrate still he lay) The old man's cheek he gently turn'd away. Now each by turns indulged the gush of woe, And now the mingled tides together flow; This low on earth, that gently bending o'er, A father one, and one a son deplore. But great Achilles different passions rend, And now his sire he mourns, and now his friend. The infectious softness through the heroes ran; One universal solemn shower began; They bore as heroes, but they felt as man. Satiate at length with unavailing woes, From the high throne divine Achilles rose. The reverend monarch by the hand he raised, On his white beard and form majestic gazed, Not unrelenting; then serene began With words to soothe the miserable man. "Alas! what weight of anguish hast thou known, Unhappy prince! Thus guardless and alone To pass through foes, and thus undaunted face The man whose fury has destroyed thy race. Heaven sure has arm'd thee with a heart of steel, A strength proportioned to the woes you feel. Rise then, let reason mitigate your care; To mourn avails not, man is born to bear. Such is, alas! the gods' severe decree; They, only they are bless'd, and only free. 2 urns by Jove's high throne have ever stood, The source of evil one, and one of good. From thence the cup of mortal man he fills, Blessings to these, to those distributes ill. To most he mingles both; the wretch decreed To taste the bad unmix'd, is cursed indeed. Pursued by wrongs, by meagre famine driven, He wanders, outcast both of earth and heaven. The happiest taste not happiness sincere, But find the cordial draught is dash'd with care. Who more than Peleus shone in wealth and power? What stars concurring bless'd his natal hour? A realm, a goddess, to his wishes given, Graced by the gods with all the gifts of heaven. One evil yet o'ertakes his latest day, No race succeeding to imperial sway. an only son, and he, alas! Ordained to fall untimely in a foreign land. See him, in Troy, the pious care decline Of his weak age, to live the curse of thine. Thou too, old man, hast happier days beheld, In riches once, in children once excell'd; Extended Phrygia own'd thy ample reign, And all fair Lesbos' blissful seats contain, And all wide Hellespont's unmeasured main. But since the god his hand has pleased to turn, And fill thy measure from his bitter urn, What sees the sun but hapless heroes' falls? War, and the blood of men, surround thy walls. What must be, must be. Bear thy lot, nor shed these unavailing sorrows o'er the dead. Thou canst not call him from the Stygian shore, But thou, alas! mayst live to suffer more. To whom the king: "O favour'd of the skies! Here let me grow to earth, since Hector lies On the bare beach deprived of obsequies. O give me Hector, to my eyes restore His course, and take the gifts: I ask no more. Thou, as thou mayst, these boundless stores enjoy; Safe mayst thou sail, and turn thy wrath from Troy. So shall thy pity and forbearance give A weak old man to see the light and live." "Move me no more," Achilles thus replies, While kindling anger sparkled in his eyes; "Nor seek by tears my steady soul to bend; To yield thy Hector I myself intend. For know, from Jove my goddess mother came, Old Ocean's daughter, silver footed dame. Nor comest thou but by heaven, nor comest alone; Some god impels with courage not thy own. No human hand the weighty gates unbarr'd, Nor could the boldest of our youth have dared To pass our outworks, or elude the guard. Cease, lest, neglectful of high Jove's command, I show thee, king, thou tread'st on hostile land. Release my knees, thy suppliant arts give o'er, And shake the purpose of my soul no more." The sire obey'd him, trembling and o'erawed. Achilles, like a lion, rush'd abroad. Automedon and Alcimus attend, Whom most he honour'd, since he lost his friend. These to unyoke the mules and horses went, And led the hoary herald to the tent. Next, heap'd on high, the numerous presents bear, Great Hector's ransom, from the